Hi, today I'd like to talk to you about code status. This is part of our end of life care planning discussions, and this month is National Hospice and Palliative Care Week as well. So as part of that, I wanted to talk about code status. So you might be wondering, what's code status? Code status is something that healthcare providers use in hospitals and other care institutions like long-term living or palliative care homes and long-term care homes. And so the code status helps your healthcare team know what type of care you would like, including whether or not you would like CPR. And so there are different levels of code status specification, and the code status helps the team know two things. One thing is what to do in the case of an urgent medical situation, and the other thing is just helping to know your general care wishes and what we call goals of care. So it helps us guide the interventions, the medical treatments that you would like to have. Or ones that you would not like to have. And generally, when we need this type of care, you're not really in a situation where you can make these decisions by yourself. And so it's going to be your family making these decisions for you. So it's really important to have end-of-life discussions with your family before you're in any urgent or emergent medical situation. And I do find that families who are able to talk about death and dying and end-of-life care planning, that those family members do receive better or at least more consistent care when they do come to the hospital. And so let's talk a little bit more. Let's dive into it. So what is code status? What's a code? So in the hospitals, they have different codes and they call them by different colors. And so the one that I'm talking about here is code blue. And code blue is a cardiorespiratory arrest. So like a heart attack or a breathing attack, where urgent medical intervention is needed to keep you alive. And so with a code, that also usually involves CPR, where we put pressure on the chest to maintain blood circulation. It could also include putting in a breathing tube, giving medications, and other interventions or procedures that are needed to keep you alive. So a code blue is one part of the code status. And so anybody who comes to the hospital, if we can't talk to them, if they're unable to communicate, we just assume that people are full code. So that is one code status, and that is the code status that will be assumed unless we find out otherwise. So everybody is full code unless otherwise specified. So everybody would get CPR, they would get breathing tubes, they would go to the intensive care unit, they would get surgeries, they would need whatever they need to keep them alive. Now that being said, that might not always be appropriate for everybody. So especially if you have a condition that is progressive, some chronic lung conditions are like that, and other conditions that people live with, where doing everything to save your life might not be the best option at a certain point. So CPR doesn't always work. Statistically speaking, outcomes are not that great, especially for people who have more illnesses. So the sicker and older we become, the less likely that CPR is likely to work. And so generally as people age and as people become sicker, your healthcare professional would probably recommend that, CPR is probably just going to be painful and messy and not prolong your life. Or if it does prolong your life, it would be in a sense of suffering. So most people would generally not want to prolong suffering. So this is often a reason why you would see a no CPR order. So there are different ways this could be specified at different institutions. So you might hear it called a no code. You might hear it called no CPR. You might hear it called DNR, Do Not Resuscitate. Or they might have numbers associated with it. So there might be a DNR 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that'll vary between institutions. So if you're, for instance, at a long-term care home and then get transferred to a hospital, you would have to discuss at the hospital what your wishes are. So don't always assume that because you've had the discussion with one institution that that same thing would carry from institution to institution, because there are different terminologies that they use. So it would be best to have the discussion at every institution just to make sure that that has been communicated and that it's been written down in your chart. So a full code is one option, which is basically do everything. No CPR or DNR or no code is another option, and that one might have different options within it. And so one of those options or questions that you would be asked is, would you like to be transferred to a hospital? So for instance, if you're living in a long-term care home, do you want to go to the hospital for treatment, or would you prefer to have whatever treatment can be provided in that facility and not be transferred to a hospital? If you are transferred to a hospital, are you okay with acute care, like an intensive care unit? Or would you rather only have the care that can be provided on a ward without like a breathing tube or certain procedures and not go to the intensive care unit? You might be asked, do you want a breathing tube? Yes, maybe you're open to it. No, maybe you draw the line there. So with all of these options, it's really good to have discussions with your family. And the discussion might be as simple as expressing to your family, hey, you know what? If I'm not likely to pull through it, I don't want to suffer. So at that point, just focus on keeping me comfortable. And they can make really good decisions with something as simple as that. Some people might know that, if I can't communicate with my family, I don't think life is really worth living. So maybe if I can no longer communicate, I'm good. Just keep me comfortable. Don't do any heroic measures. Don't keep me alive with machines. I'm not interested in that kind of life. There are a lot of different scenarios that can happen. So I would not recommend trying to go through all the what ifs. What if I'm paralyzed, but I can talk? Or, you don't have to go through all of these what if situations because it's impossible to predict. So don't think of it as though you're trying to figure out all the possible ways you could die and which ones you're okay with or not. Talk about what's important to you. So as an example, what are my wishes? So I do not want to suffer. I would tell my family, or I have told my family, don't keep me alive with machines. If my life isn't going to be a good life where I can move around and communicate with people and do the things that I enjoy, then more of suffering or more of life stuck in a hospital bed is not something that I'm interested. And my family knows that. And the more you speak with your family about it, to put them at ease with the fact that one day they may need to make a decision about putting the focus on keeping you comfortable, which might end your life a little sooner, rather than extending life, even though there's discomfort or suffering involved. So what I do see working in the hospital is that keeping people alive is not always pleasant for that person being kept alive. So just because we can keep you alive doesn't always mean that that's the best choice. And so if your family is able to ask questions like, what are the chances that they're going to be able to get out of the hospital and start living again? Ask that. Ask your physicians that, if that's something that's important to you. So have the conversation. Don't shy away from it. Talk about death and dying with your family. Death and dying is something that people used to live around pretty commonly. And nowadays, that's usually kept to the hospital. And you may not have seen death or people living with end-stage illness because it's usually just kept to immediate family and it's kept in the hospital. So we don't really see that at home or with our neighbors very often in life anymore. That's changed over the last 100 or 200 years. So we need to have the conversations about it. And don't shy away from it. Just have some basic conversation. Just bring the subject up. You don't have to answer all the what ifs. Just let people know what your wishes are. And this can make your end of life a lot more smooth and pleasant, and it relieves the sense of guilt and anxiety for your family.